Developing right now on Morning News Now, Iran and Israel back on the brink of an all-out war. Overnight, both sides exchanging new strikes hours after President Trump said he'd warn Israel's president not to retaliate against Iranian attacks. Now, growing concern that a potential peace deal may never happen. We'll bring you the latest. Also developing a major shift in the Los Angeles mayor's race. City councilwoman Nithya Raman pulling ahead of former reality star Spencer Pratt nearly 1 week after the primary election. Now, the Trump administration saying it's investigating multiple allegations of fraud in California, with the president comparing it to the 2020 election on NBC's Meet the Press.
The election was rigged. It was a dirty election. And it's happening again right now in California.
Presented evidence.
It's happening right now in California.
We'll have much more of that heated exchange with our own Kristen Welker, including what led the president to walk out. And an alarming discovery threatening to wipe out America's livestock. Officials in Texas confirming at least 2 cases of a flesh-eating parasite eradicated in the U.S. more than half a century ago. What doctors want you to know. And history on Broadway's biggest night, a new take on an old play breaking records at last night's Tony Awards. More on the biggest winners, plus some surprises, and of course the snubs. We will pull back the curtain on some of the most memorable moments on stage. Good morning, I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe is on assignment today. It's too bad because he'd help us out on that Tony segment, but you're just with me this morning. We are going to begin a new week with an escalation of attacks in the Middle East, threatening to move the region back into an all-out war and dampening the potential for a long-term ceasefire. It's now been 100 days since the war with Iran began. Israel and Iran traded retaliatory strikes, with Israel saying Iran launched missiles on Sunday. The Israeli Defense Forces say it detected missiles launched from Iran and activated air defense systems to intercept them. This comes after Israeli warplanes struck Beirut in retaliation for alleged Hezbollah attacks. Israel launched strikes on Iran earlier today in response, striking military targets in the western and central parts of Iran. This is their first direct confrontation since the April ceasefire with the United States. The U.S. military says it's monitoring the active situation between the two nations. A U.S. official says there's been no U.S. involvement in this round of attacks. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump claims that both sides are, quote, looking to do an immediate ceasefire. We will have analysis on the latest attacks as well as reaction from Washington. Let's begin with NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel, though, in Jerusalem for more on this conflict. Hey, Richard, good morning.
In a new social media post, President Trump called on Iran and Israel to immediately stop shooting after the two sides exchanged fire for the first time since the April ceasefire. It began last night when Iran launched a barrage of ballistic missiles at Israel. Israel waiting a few hours, then responding with strikes on Iran, hitting at least 7 targets, according to the Israeli military. Israel says that Iran, in total, between last night and this morning, fired around 30 ballistic missiles at Israel, nearly all of them shot down. Neither Iran nor Israel are reporting any casualties. Iran says it began this escalation. It began firing ballistic missiles at Israel in response to Israel's ongoing and still escalating offensive in Lebanon. Iran had threatened to attack Israel if Israel went through with its threat to carry out a strike on Beirut. That strike happened over the weekend when Israel attacked 2 buildings in Beirut. Israel says it attacked Beirut. It is carrying out its offensive in Lebanon to stop Hezbollah from firing into northern Israeli communities. But there was one noticeable difference in this escalation. Iran did not fire at any American warships in the Persian Gulf, any American bases in the region, or any U.S. Gulf allies. And a short time ago, a spokesman for the Iranian Foreign Ministry said that ultimately it blamed the United States for this escalation because it allows Israel to continue to violate the ceasefire. But the official added that the U.S. and Iran are still exchanging messages in a, quote, atmosphere of deep mistrust.
All right, Richard, thank you. Well, for more on this conflict, let's bring in Elise Labott. She's the host of Cosmopolitics on Substack. Elise, good morning. Thank you for being with us, as always. So this is the most serious attack since that ceasefire with Iran was reached, which was 2 months ago now. What are the biggest concerns right now as Iran and Israel exchange attacks? Do you see this sliding back into a full-blown confrontation?
Well, President Trump is, saying this morning, obviously, that Israel and Iran are ready for a ceasefire. They're, going to stop and, telling the Financial Times and others that he calls the shots. Nobody calls the shots but me. But, Savannah, the enemy has a say. And I think this is the big frustration of President Trump, that the U.S. and Iran are having these talks. But particularly this issue of Lebanon is really getting in the way of this deal between the U.S. and Iran, because Israel sees Lebanon as part of this whole war, which is pretty ironic because at the same time, they're saying this is unrelated to the talks between the U.S. and Israel. So I think this between the U.S. and Iran, So this is really, I think, the thing that's getting in the way. And I think what Iran has been able to do quite successfully is further this wedge between the U.S. and Israel. Clearly, President Trump is getting frustrated that Prime Minister Netanyahu is, not listening to him after he joined the war with Iran. And I think this is, when you join with allies have their own self-interest. And so I think at this point, Israel is going ahead. It does not recognize Lebanon as part of this ceasefire. President Trump is frustrated that Iran will not continue to talk to the U.S. in a real meaningful way until this issue gets solved.
What do you make at this point of the relationship, the partnership between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think it's very frayed. I think it's always kind of been this very complex relationship. The U.S. clearly sees Israel as one of its closest allies in the region, vice versa. But at the same time, while they've been very successful in the beginning of the war, and I think going after, the targets simultaneously, going after the supreme leader, while the U.S. focused on the Iranian missiles and nuclear sites and the Navy, now the interests are really, you see that they have different goals. Israel sees Lebanon and the whole Iranian regime as part of the same post-October 7th war that started with Hamas, but then you saw it went after Lebanon, then you saw it went after Iran, it went after the Houthis, and they continue to go full steam ahead, and they want to destroy the whole Iranian architecture of its proxies, its leadership, while President Trump is really very frustrated, wants to get this deal done, wants to move on. And I think he'd be happy for something shorter than that, which clearly doesn't involve Hezbollah. And at the same time, the U.S. is talking through intermediaries to Hezbollah that says, listen, if Israel stops, we'll stop. But clearly the ceasefire, this thing of Lebanon is really the one that's holding it up.
Elise, what do you think moves us any closer to ending these hostilities, gets ceasefire talks back on track?
Well, it's very interesting that Israel did not strike any Iranian energy infrastructure. It is being super careful here. And you saw President Trump early up, posting on social media this morning. Clearly, there are talks going on to walk this back. I think it's really going to be about whether Prime Minister Netanyahu is willing to stand down. I think the Iranians said that it would stand down if they consider this, round over, if the Israelis are willing to stop the fighting. If not, I think it could really escalate, but I think there's still time to walk it back.
All right, Elise Labott, thank you so much, as always. Now let's bring in NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz. We want to talk now about the latest from the Trump administration, some of it related to this as well. Elise, good morning. Megan, good morning. Big headlines this weekend right here from within our own news group when President Trump sat for this taped interview with Meet the Press. That was on Friday. He was asked about the war with Iran. He was asked about that controversial anti-weaponization fund. And we're going to get into all that in a moment. But first, we do just want to talk about this growing fallout from how the conversation ended. The president abruptly stormed out of this interview after moderator Kristen Welker repeatedly challenged his election fraud claims, kind of harking back to the 2020 election, but also talking about what's happening in California right now as votes are counted. Let's listen to some of that.
Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. Right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Megan, walk us through what led up to this moment, what happened right there as we hear him say, I'm done, and what reaction has been like.
Yeah, so ahead of that moment where he had walked out of the interview, he had claimed multiple times that the 2020 election was rigged, and he claimed that it was happening right now in California. Now, there's no evidence to back up those claims. The 2020 election, his claims about the 2020 election were false, and Kristen Welker had repeatedly pressed him on this, had pressed him on the fact that, asking him where is his evidence, and pointing out the fact that the administration has not provided evidence for this. Now, asked about California, he had said all he has to do is look. He had also pointed to the fact that California takes a long time to count their ballots. Now, the reason that California takes a long time to count their ballots is because of state election laws, and also the fact that most voters in California ultimately vote by mail. Now, after that exchange where Kristen had pressed him multiple times on this, that's ultimately when he had left that interview. Now, Kristen also had spoke with President Trump again on Saturday, and she said yesterday on Meet the Press that when they spoke, they also both agreed that the rain had posed challenges to the interview as well. The interview had been paused multiple times because of the rain and the loud noises that it was making. And she also said, Savannah, that President Trump had agreed to sit down for another interview on Meet the Press.
All right, Megan, thank you for walking us through that. I also do want to talk about some of the topics that the president did address before the end of that interview, before he stormed off. On Iran, President Trump said that if the U.S. and Iran make a deal, the countries would work together to destroy its uranium. Now, this has really been at the crux of how this war is going to come to an end, because, of course, that has to do with their nuclear program. Did he give details on how that would work?
Yeah, so this exchange came when Kristen had asked President Trump about whether the U.S. would potentially send in troops into Iran in order to retrieve Iran's nuclear stockpile. It's highly enriched uranium. Now, President Trump then responded to that, posing a scenario where the U.S. and Iran, if they come to a deal, are able to work together in order to ultimately take that uranium out and to ultimately destroy it. Take a listen to how else he said that this would go down.
But the way you do it is if we make a deal, now we're friendly, we'll all go together. It'll be our equipment. We'll take it out and destroy it, whether it's on site or whether we take it off site.
So that would require U.S. forces?
Well, that will require we will have a deal. We'll be friendly. In other words, we will have made a deal. And we will be at peace.
He went on to say that if the U.S. and Iran do not come to a deal, then the U.S. would take them out militarily, Savannah.
Let's also talk, Megan, about the anti-weaponization fund, which was temporarily blocked by a judge. And then we have acting Attorney General Todd Blanche telling lawmakers that the administration isn't moving forward with the fund. So what did the president have to say about it at this point in this interview?
Yeah, so the president did not rule out payments from taxpayer money to ultimately give to January 6th defendants who were accused of assaulting police officers. So when asked whether in that interview, whether anyone who attacked police officers during that January 6th attack on the Capitol in 2021, President Trump responded saying that he would not be inclined to say so, but he has to see it. Now, as you mentioned as well, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche had said previously he told lawmakers that the administration was no longer pursuing this so-called anti-weaponization fund. So Kristen also asked President Trump whether he was looking to potentially revive that. Take a listen to how he responded.
So are you looking for a way to revive it?
Well, look, if it was up to me, I'd pay them the kind of money that they deserve. People have been destroyed. Lives have been destroyed. Many suicides. Think of it. People have committed suicide because a bunch of thugs went after them. So me, personally, I think the weaponization fund is a great idea. And so do many other Republicans. You have to get it approved. If they get it approved, that's great. If they don't get it approved, I'd be disappointed.
Remember, that so-called anti-weaponization fund had gotten a whole lot of pushback from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, including Republicans, who had some pretty strong words criticizing that so-called anti-weaponization fund. That backlash had ultimately led to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche saying that the administration wasn't going to pursue that anymore. But the president's comments raising questions about whether the administration could potentially pursue that again in the future. Savannah.
All right, Megan, thank you so much. Well, in California, ballots are still being counted, as we mentioned, in several key primary races nearly 1 week after Election Day. In the race to replace Governor Gavin Newsom, NBC News is projecting that Democrat Javier Becerra, a former Biden cabinet member, will advance to the November election, but it still remains unclear who he will face as former Fox News host Steve Hilton and Democrat Tom Steyer fight for second place. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, we are seeing a big shift in the race for mayor. Conservative candidate and former reality TV star Spencer Pratt has dropped to third place behind progressive city councilwoman Nithya Raman. The two candidates are battling it out to face Democratic Mayor Karen Bass in a November runoff. Well, Pratt has echoed President Trump's claims of election fraud, posting on X, quote, "They're not the only ones who know where to find votes," after Raman gained ground over the weekend. We will, of course, keep an eye on this race as that count continues to roll in. Well, police in Ohio are searching for at least two suspects who opened fire near a festival for families in Toledo on Saturday night. Investigators believe the shooters were firing at each other, but instead shot and wounded 12 other people at the Old West End Festival. One witness described the chaos as the shooting started.
It sounded like it was flying everywhere. I swear I heard one go right by me. I swear I have no idea, but I swear I heard one go right by me. It was just like it was crazy. This is not the way that we're supposed to live as a community. Like, this is not normal.
Police say all 12 victims are in stable condition. Let's get you some weather news now. Power crews in North Dakota are working to restore service after strong storms pushed through the state. Heavy rain, hail, and strong winds with gusts more than 90 miles per hour caused flooding and brought down power lines in Bismarck and the surrounding areas overnight. That comes as millions across the plains and the South remain under flood alerts this morning. On Sunday, Huntsville, Alabama got roughly 9 inches of rain in some spots. For more on what we can expect today, let's bring in meteorologist Andrea Romero. She is tracking the latest conditions as we get our work week started. Hey, Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. And it's a serious flooding setup that we have here in parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri. We have some heavy storms this morning with some flash flood warnings that are up at this time. We have 27 million people who are, in fact, under this flood watch, which is extending all the way from parts of the Central Plains into parts of the Mississippi and Tennessee valleys. So we're expecting a lot of rainfall. We can see some heavy storm activity also here in parts of Iowa. The flash flood risk will be present, especially in this area right here where hourly rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour are possible. And between today and tomorrow, we're looking at storm totals of maybe 5 to 8 inches, especially here near the Tennessee River valleys. So it's a lot of rainfall, and we could have that flash flooding occur. You want to make sure you're careful and you never run or drive or walk through any location that has any flooded streets or roads because you never know how deep the water is. The summer soaker will continue without those torrential rainfalls, those severe storms possible across the Front Range. Into tomorrow, the severe weather will be enhanced across the northern plains. That's where we're expecting that severe threat of storms for tomorrow. Today, the severe weather threat, the storm hazards are mostly over here, parts of the plains. Damaging hail of over 2-inch diameter is possible with a few tornadoes, but this weather will only increase in intensity the next couple of days. We're expecting a few strong tornadoes, perhaps in the Dakotas, for tomorrow, Tuesday, and into Wednesday and Thursday. Those hazards will continue to strengthen as they move eastward, going into the Ohio Ohio Valley, possibly by Thursday. As far as the western part of the country, we're looking at that extreme fire behavior that's possible with over 11 million people that will be impacted with those conditions out west. And we'll have more about the heat that's going to be impacting us, Savannah, this week in my hit later on in the next hour.
Okay, great, Andrea. Thank you so much. Well, for the first time since being fired from 60 Minutes, veteran correspondent Scott Pelley is speaking out. In an interview with the New York Times, he revealed he is heartbroken over what he described as editorial interference that sought to push President Trump's version of events at the network. Pelley was fired after clashing openly with new CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss and new 60 Minutes executive producer Nick Bilton. Pelley also warned the news division is in crisis. Listen to this.
Right now, CBS News, in my view, is on fire. There are people in that room who go to war zones when they are pregnant. To have people running CBS News who don't know that, have never felt that, and don't understand it is a tragedy I never expected to see.
He also called on Paramount's leadership to step in. They own CBS News, saying he hoped executives would realize, quote, this isn't working. Well, jury selection is set to begin in California later this morning in the federal arson trial of Jonathan Rinderknecht. He's accused of sparking the deadly Pacific Palisades wildfires, which destroyed thousands of homes and businesses. Rinderknecht has pleaded not guilty to all charges. If convicted, he could face up to 20 years in prison. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas here on set with us with more on this trial. Danny, good morning.
Good morning.
So help us unpack this one, because here's sort of like the quirk here. Last year, the suspect was arrested and indicted on charges directly related to a different, smaller fire that prosecutors say is what ultimately led to the Palisades fire. Unpack for us first, like how important it would be to prove that link.
It is the entire case. And this is a fascinating, unusual legal theory, because you essentially have, for the defense, at least this is their theory, there are two separate crimes. There's the first smaller fire, which didn't do nearly as much damage. And then there's the second fire 6 days later, which caused all the damage. So you have a very unusual case here where the prosecution has to prove causation. Not that the fire caused damages, but that the suspect even caused the fire that caused the damages. You don't normally have that problem. In the case of a bank robbery, you know there was a bank robbery. You know there was a crime. In the case of other crimes like murder, you know that there was a homicide. But here, there may not have been a crime when it came to the second fire. And in fact, the government still has to prove he caused the first fire and that fire caused the second fire.
So it sounds tough to prove.
It does from a causation standpoint. The defense doesn't need to disprove anything. They just need to raise reasonable doubt. And as to that second fire, for example, they can raise reasonable doubt by pointing to all of the other ways a fire can start. Lightning, somebody else setting it, anything that could have happened 6 days later. The defense wants this to be about two fires. The prosecutions, they want this to be about one fire that spanned 6 days.
The judge actually recently warned that the prosecution's case, as you're essentially unpacking here, could confuse jurors and even lead to a legally questionable verdict, was what he said. What are the concerns that he's raising there?
At the end of every trial, the lawyers have to figure out with the judge a jury verdict form. And I know it sounds simple, but it's kind of like a flow chart. If you find this, then that. It's really hard to word these things for a jury of people who just became familiar with this case. Right. So the challenge is going to be explaining to them that they need to find not only that he caused the first fire, but that fire caused the second fire. So you have two causal links here that a jury could easily get confused with. I could easily get confused with it.
What do you think the defense strategy shapes up to be?
The defense strategy, really, it's interesting. The judge barred them from blaming the fire department for their negligence. I would have gone the other way. I would have said the fire department did such a good job putting out the first fire that there's more than enough reasonable doubt that the first fire had anything to do with the second fire. I mean, how could there have been a second fire with all the foam and the water and all the expert firefighters saying this fire is now out? That would be the central thesis of my case. But all the defense needs to do is create reasonable doubt, not prove some other cause of the fire.
All right, Danny Savalas, thank you so much. Well, here in New York, one person is in custody after authorities say 6 people were injured in a knife attack at Penn Station last night. Officials say one person had serious injuries. Others had a range from minor to moderate wounds from the attack. The incident took place a little more than 24 hours before President Trump is expected to attend the Knicks-Spurs game tonight. That's just above the station at Madison Square Garden, and it will be under tight security. A spokesperson for Amtrak said that all patients were stable and that a knife was recovered at the scene. A senior law enforcement official said that a person believed to have mental health issues was taken into custody. That official also says there are no early signs that the attack was related to terrorism. Now let's move upstairs to Madison Square Garden. The Knicks hold that commanding 2-0 lead in the series after winning both games in San Antonio. This right here, these are celebrations at watch parties outside Madison Square Garden after a thrilling end to Game 2. That was back on Friday night. It came down to the final seconds. Well, tonight, Knicks fans will watch their team play in the finals on their home court for the first time in nearly 3 decades. But this type of watch party, the ones that are right outside the arena, they're definitely a vibe, but they will be shut down for Game 3 after, as I just mentioned, the president announced plans to be in the building.
I'll be going to Game 3. I thought it was amazing. I think the Knicks have an amazing team, the way they played.
President Trump's attendance will add an extra blanket of security for the game with TSA-style screening protocols and a strict no-bag policy. In a statement, the Knicks are encouraging fans to arrive at least 2 hours before tip-off. We've got much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, countdown to kick off the FIFA World Cup, now just days away. More on the excitement as the world's most popular sports tournament comes to the U.S. Up first, though, after the break, a warm welcome for Pope Leo on his first visit to Spain. We'll take you to Madrid next. Stay with us. Welcome back. More than 1 million of the Catholic faithful flooded the streets of Madrid this weekend to welcome Pope Leo during his first visit to Spain. Yesterday, the pontiff celebrated Mass and led a centuries-old Catholic procession celebrating the Feast of Corpus Christi, drawing one of the largest crowds of his papacy so far. NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga is covering the Pope's visit this week, and he joins us from Madrid. Claudio, good morning. So earlier this morning, Pope Leo became the first pope to address Spanish Parliament. What was his message?
Hey, Savannah. Well, that really was history. He became the first pope, as you mentioned, to enter the Spanish parliament and address a joint session. He received a few minutes of standing ovation from both sides of the aisle. And during a very long speech, he touched on many subjects, of course. He called for peace and dialogues, but he also said something very interesting. He said that pluralism in politics should never degenerate into permanent discrediting of the adversary. Now, that, of course, applies to the parliament here in Spain, which is very fragmented, very polarized, but it's a message that will resonate strongly anywhere else in the world, including, of course, in the United States. He also touched on the issue of migration, a hot topic here, and especially at a time when the socialist government here has just passed a law that will allow at least 500,000 migrants who have arrived here illegally to apply for a work and leave stay for at least 1 year if they prove they have, they found a job and several other things. Now, this is, of course, in counter tendency to what is happening in the rest of the world, including the U.S., of course.
Claudio, just these videos, look at how incredible these crowds are, just huge. Tell us about the excitement around this visit.
Yeah, the reception here for the Pope is well beyond expectation. On the first night, he held a vigil with young people. 600,000 people came. There was a lot of talk about who would go to the Bad Bunny concert because he's in town as well, and who will go to see the Pope. And there were 600,000 people who chose the Pope. Yesterday, as you mentioned, on Sunday, 1.2 million people attended the Mass. And that really is something, if you consider that that 90% of people here in Spain identified as Catholics back in the 70s. Well, these days that number has dropped to around 55%. But you will not notice, with the Pope's present these days. And that really shows that there is a revival of Catholicism here in Spain.
Oh, absolutely. Love seeing the little kids being lifted right up to him. Claudio, as this trip continues, what are the big moments still ahead?
Well, tomorrow he travels to Barcelona, where then on Wednesday he's going to inaugurate and bless the Tower of Christ, which will make the Sagrada Familia, that beautiful cathedral in Barcelona by Antoni Gaudi, the tallest church in the world. And that also happens on the 100th anniversary of its architect, of course, Antoni Gaudi. Then towards the end of the week, he's going to go to the Canary Islands, which is considered one of the deadliest migration routes in the world, before he returns to Rome and the Vatican on Friday.
All right, Claudio, safe travels. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon. We're coming up. Growing concerns about a flesh-eating parasite discovered in Texas, eradicated from the U.S. decades ago, that's threatening America's livestock. The warning from officials next on Morning News Now. We are back with a health warning from wildlife officials about a flesh-eating parasite. It is called a New World screwworm, and one has just been found on a baby cow in Texas. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said this is the first confirmed case in U.S. livestock since the parasite was eliminated back in the 1960s. Dr. Sonia Swiger joins me now with more on this. She's an extension livestock entomologist and a professor at Texas A&M University. Dr. Swiger, thank you so much for joining us. Let's just start with a little explanation here. What is a screwworm? What threat does it pose to livestock?
Yeah, so a New World screwworm is actually a parasitic blowfly. And what's unique about this blowfly is they actually lay their eggs on living animals, and then the larvae that ensue from those eggs actually eat the flesh of those living animals.
Okay, so that sounds like quite a threat, right, to livestock potentially?
Yes, they definitely attack livestock most frequently, but also wildlife are highly of concern, and companion animals can be impacted as well.
So learning that it's a fly, it seems a little tough to contain or to be able to exactly find. I mean, what is being done? What can be done to try to stop them from spreading?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main reasons that they move around is because they move in animals. So not moving infested animals is the most important thing to stop their movement. But yes, as you mentioned, it is a fly, so they do have wings. So we also put traps out to observe any flight movement by the adults. But animal inspections are highly important in this situation.
I mean, when we're talking about a fly, and it's a little bit difficult to tell in these pictures here. Okay, I guess there we have a little bit of a better idea of the size. Is it easy to find, to spot on livestock? It seems like it could be difficult.
It can be at first, because when they first emerge, they are very tiny when they first get out of their eggs, but they do get to be fairly large in size when they're the third instar larva, and they make a real devastating wound on these animals, and there can usually be a very disgusting smell, as well as some discharge from them feeding on that animal's flesh.
Oh, boy. Apologies to anybody enjoying their breakfast while they're watching our show. I mentioned, like, in the intro to this, that what I just said was one has just been found on a baby cow. Is it safe to say, though, if there's one, there are more? Like, is this the kind of thing where there's one, or are there a lot?
Well, we actually have 2 confirmed cases now in Texas. So, yes, it isn't uncommon to find more than one, unfortunately, when we do find the first one.
You hear the words flesh-eating parasite. Sounds, I mean, scary. Sounds kind of like just about as bad as it can get. I mean, how much of a concern is this?
It is a major concern, because we know it will have a huge impact to our cattle industry as well as our wildlife industry here in Texas. And if it did get into other states, it would still be very problematic because it does cause severe harm to newborn animals.
Any threat to humans?
Humans are also a potential host, but we do fall on kind of the rarer side of that situation, but it's not impossible.
How is this treated, this infection?
Well, you have to fight the larva. So you have to treat the animal by cleaning the larva out of the animal, as well as, using some systemics to help kill them off, as well as removing and maybe doing some surgery if needed, depending on the severity of that infestation. But also we have to utilize the sterile flies, which is the best way to control them in the environment.
In the U.S. cattle population, it's already at a historic low. We know beef prices are sky high. How much worse could this make things?
Well, unfortunately, I can't speak a whole lot on that since I'm not an economist, but we do know it is going to have an impact, unfortunately, in this situation.
I mentioned that this is something that had been eradicated back in the 60s. Why, how would we see the return of something like this?
Yeah, it is very unfortunate that it has returned back, and it was eradicated many years ago. They've been gone for over 50 years from the state of Texas, and longer for other states. But the movement of animals that were infested with larvae has really led to this return back through Central America, Mexico, and now into Texas.
right now, what do you want to see being done to try to stop the spread of this?
Vigilance is very important, and people need to understand that the biggest way to move it around is, again, moving infested animals. So we need to not do that because that's really problematic.
Dr. Sonia Swiger, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Certainly a talker of a headline there. We appreciate your expertise.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coming up on Morning News Now, a new kind of marketing turning teens into millionaires.
People are not necessarily going out of their way looking for you, but are sort of being groomed to accept that you will be in front of their eyeballs.
Up next, more on the online strategy known as clipping and why the videos you see while you scroll might not be as organic as you think. Also, history at the French Open. Will have highlights from one of the most unpredictable Grand Slam tournaments in years. Stay with us. We're back now with a look at almost a modern-day version of bounty hunting that's turning some teens into millionaires. But as NBC News Now anchor Gotti Schwartz explains, this chase has nothing to do with capturing fugitives. Success in this industry is all about catching clips and going viral.
Should have never let you back into my life. Those videos flooding your feeds, those short clips of podcasts, live streams, or TV shows, if you think they're all organic viral moments or fan edits, get ready to learn about an entire background industry of people actually paid to post clips.
There's $100,000 waiting for you right now.
This is the clip economy, or the marketplace of going viral.
It involves contractors who are called clippers going into a social media star's content, finding segments that they think can go viral and scattering that across short form video apps like TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts.
It's helped turn people like Clavicular, the guy known for his looks-maxing routines, into internet stars.
Looks-maxing is the furthest extent that you could take self-improvement.
In just 1 month, over 1,600 clippers posted almost 70,000 videos of Clavicular and racked up over 2 billion views. Those are stats released by the live streaming platform Kick, who pays for the clippers.
You guys can clip for me and get paid to do it.
But where did clipping start?
Woo! Clip that!
It's hard to say exactly, but those following the history of clipping point to the days when gaming streamers like Ninja used to ask their fans to clip their best moments from the streams.
Clip that, dude.
Fans ended up creating highlight reels that people could share.
This is more a professionalization of that kind of fan army that people used to have by people who are not necessarily fans but are paid contractors.
And the rise of monetization of short-form video platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels turned that feature into a core part of content discovery. Now streamers like Neon are paying clippers over $1 million a month.
Then how are you paying clippers $1 million this month? It just everything goes right back into them.
Comparatively speaking, it can still be a cheap form of advertising. A Google search ad averages at $38.40 per 1,000 impressions, which is $3,800 for 100,000 views. For that same reach, clipping only costs $30 to $75. That's a standard rate listed by the most popular clipping agency, aptly named Clipping.
What up, gamers?
But just because it's cheap doesn't mean clippers aren't making a whole lot of money.
You can scale up to a few $1,000s a month, and depending on the creator, even in a 5-figure range. After that, you can scale up more deals, more campaigns, and go as high as $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month from clipping.
Alexa runs a clipping agency called Cliptic.
We have a clipping community of over 70,000 members.
He's 18 years old, and he suggests that the rest of the community is just as young.
All the people that are doing clipping are usually anywhere from 15 to 20 years old.
And the tactic is going mainstream. Content from Netflix and Amazon Prime shows are being boosted by paid clippers, and an executive at Capitol Music Group told Bloomberg that they use it to promote artists including Ice Spice and Offset. We reached out to Netflix, Amazon, and Capitol Music Group for comment, but haven't heard back. The world's biggest YouTuber, Mr. Beast, has paid clippers for his own content, and now he's got his own clipping company called Viro. And it could be a covert operation, since clips aren't labeled as ads, which people might be more likely to scroll past.
There's this expectation when you're driving by a billboard, you're like, okay, somebody has paid to put an image in that billboard spot. But with clipping, there isn't always that media literacy on the viewer's part, understanding that what they're seeing is actually marketing.
It's a new internet ecosystem, blurring the line between choice and influence.
You're kind of trying to flood the zone with your content in a way where you become inevitable and ubiquitous, and people are not necessarily going out of their way looking for you, but are sort of being groomed to accept that you will be in front of their eyeballs.
A reminder to pay attention to what your attention is paying for. Gadi Schwartz, NBC News.
Well, yesterday was the final weekend of the French Open, and the clay courts of Roland Garros were home to one of the most unpredictable majors in years. After all the tournament favorites were knocked out early, the stage was set for some unexpected champions. Also in women's doubles, one American is adding yet another trophy to her resume as part of a dynamic duo that continues to dominate. We have NBC News sports reporter Rohan Nadkarni joining us for more on all the winners out of Paris this weekend. Rohan, great to see you. Good morning. So there's a lot to get to. Let's start with the men's draw. Alexander Zverev, he's one of the biggest names in tennis history who had not yet won a Grand Slam title. Now he has. Walk us through his victory and what it means for his legacy.
Yeah, I think Zverev was someone who kind of became one of the favorites to win this tournament once, there were injuries at the top of the men's bracket. Then obviously Jannik Sinner going out very early. It's a complicated legacy for Zverev. Obviously, he's a great tennis player. He was kind of that last guy. Everyone was waiting to win a major. It looked like Alcaraz and Sinner were kind of taking over the sport. He's had a lot of off-court issues, domestic violence allegations that have really kind of clouded his career, followed him everywhere he went. So it's kind of complicated. I think there's certainly a segment of tennis fans who are happy to see him win a Grand Slam, but he's always kind of had, I would say, a complicated legacy in the sport.
Absolutely. Sometimes spills out and sort of takes the spotlight. Rohan, meanwhile, on the women's side, we have 19-year-old Mira Andreeva. She won her first Grand Slam over the weekend. She's the youngest woman champion at Roland Garros since '92. Are we looking at one of the next tennis greats here?
Gosh, it's so hard to say what are the grades, but I mean, she's certainly on the climb, and she's been ranked as high as 5 in the singles poll. Obviously, winning at 19 is such an impressive achievement. I definitely think she has the tools. I would say, winning your first major at Roland Garros, a famously difficult surface, a tricky one for even our greatest tennis players to figure out. I think it's such a great sign for her future. So she definitely has that potential. I don't know how much pressure we want to put on her this early in her career, but she looked great. And I definitely think that there is a lot of uncertainty, I would say, at the top of the women's game right now. And there's a void definitely that's there for her to fill.
All right. And now let's talk American Taylor Townsend. She took home her 3rd Grand Slam doubles title. She's part of this dynamic duo. It just seems all they do is win. How special is their doubles run and their partnership?
It's a great partnership. I think, what Townsend and her partner have is kind of a really different playing styles, right? Townsend's kind of this serve and volley player. She plays a really old school style of tennis. Her doubles partner played a much more modern game. They've talked about how their different styles can be very confusing for opponents, but it's made them go on an incredible run. They're 27-2 in matches this year. So I think, frankly, it confuses opponents at times seeing someone play as differently as those two play.
Absolutely. All right, Rohan, before you go, not French Open, still tennis. We got to talk about Serena Williams, the queen of the court. She's making her return to professional tennis for the first time in 4 years. It's going to be at the HSBC Championships in London this week. It's going to be in a doubles tournament. What are the expectations for her?
Well, I know everyone wants her to come out and look like the Serena Williams we all remember, right? The most dominant force in tennis. I think we just talked about kind of the uncertainty at the top of the women's bracket. Can she return to the top right away? I wouldn't expect that right away. I think it's going to take her a little while to ramp up. I think that's why you're seeing her do a tournament like this, starting in doubles, right? She's not going on center court in Wimbledon right away. Having said that, knowing the kind of competitor she is, I don't think she's making this comeback just to have some fun, hit a few volleys out there. I'm sure she's ramping up for something bigger, but I think it's going to take a little time before she gets into the form we're used to seeing Serena Williams playing.
All right, Rohan Nadkarni, great to have you with us. Thanks so much. Good morning. Thanks so much for kicking off your Monday morning with us. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe's on assignment today. Right now on Morning News Now, firepower and fury, a bitter back and forth on Meet the Press over the weekend. President Trump walking away from a tense one-on-one interview with our own Kristen Welker after being pressed on his claims of election fraud in California.
Let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President. We've got much more from their conversation as overseas fears of an all-out war blossom. Iran and Israel exchanging attacks for the first time since that fragile ceasefire took hold. The latest in just a moment. Breaking this morning, at least 19 people are dead, hundreds more injured after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake rocked the southwest Philippines overnight. The desperate race to find those still missing in the rubble. Plus, on the record, veteran 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley speaking out for the first time since his shocking exit from CBS News, slamming leadership in an emotional interview with the New York Times.
You become a journalist because you love the country. There is no democracy without journalism.
More from that hour-long sit-down and what the future may hold for the network's flagship Name in News. And later in the hour, the New York Knicks finally coming back home for Game 3 of the NBA Finals against San Antonio Spurs tonight. But with President Trump slated to stop by, what can fans expect at the world's most famous arena in just a matter of hours? We'll clue you in on the safety measures in place. Thanks again for starting your week with us. We're going to begin this hour with President Trump's fiery Meet the Press interview. On Friday, the president abruptly ended the conversation, removing his microphone and walking off after moderator Kristen Welker pressed him on his repeated claims of election fraud. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Garrett Haake joins us from the White House with the details here. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Look, this interview set in a barn in Wisconsin quickly grew stormy in more ways than one. Loud rain on the metal roof interrupted the discussion repeatedly, and when the questioning moved to President Trump's baseless claims of election fraud, the president ended the conversation altogether.
With the dishonest.
Listen, we traveled all the way.
New fallout this morning from President Trump's contentious interview with Meet the Press. The president repeated baseless claims of election fraud, seizing on last week's primary elections in California, where votes are still being counted.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a winner?
State and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging
They're
the votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote in California.
There is no evidence of election fraud or problems with ballot counting in the state. Pressed for evidence to back up his claims, the president escalated, then abruptly ended the interview.
You're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour, on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what? A country can never be great with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Earlier, the president discussing the war with Iran, pressed about his 2024 campaign pledge of no new wars.
But I will not send you to fight and die in a foolish, never-ending foreign war.
What changed? Because you insisted no new wars.
First of all, I didn't guarantee no war. Why would I have built the strongest military in the world? I built our military.
The president also defending his administration's controversial $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund, declining to rule out the proposed taxpayer-funded compensation for January 6th rioters who attacked the Capitol and police officers. Even after the Justice Department told a court last week the fund is, quote, not going forward.
So are you looking for a way to revive it?
Well, look, if it was up to me, I'd pay them the kind of money that they deserve. People have been destroyed. Lives have been destroyed.
Now, as for the subject that ended that interview, the president posted repeatedly overnight about what he calls crooked and rigged elections in California. His evidence for those claims may have to come in another interview with Meet the Press. Kristen reported Sunday that she spoke with President Trump over the weekend, and he's already agreed to come back for another sit-down. Savannah, I'll watch.
Oh, no kidding. All right, Garrett, thanks for kicking us off this hour. Well, it's been 100 days since the war with Iran began, and new violence over the weekend is threatening to prolong the conflict in the Middle East. Israel and Iran have exchanged attacks that began on Sunday and continued earlier this morning. This is their first direct confrontation since the April ceasefire with the United States. In a post on social media this morning, President Trump urged both sides to, quote, stop shooting. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the latest developments for us from Jerusalem. Richard, good morning.
President Trump has issued new posts on social media this morning saying that Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting and that peace talks are still proceeding, barring, quote, ignorance or stupidity getting in their way.
Iranian TV overnight showed large, excited crowds of regime supporters in Tehran celebrating as Iran launched missiles at Israel. Those bright spots in the sky are believed to be some of the missiles on their way. Iran's Revolutionary Guard released video claiming to show the launches. NBC News cannot verify the footage. The Israeli military told NBC News this morning Iran fired approximately 30 missiles, most of them shot down. A video shows what it was like in a plane that landed in Tel Aviv this morning as missiles were inbound.
Missiles are coming here. We need to get off this airplane, please. Can you tell the pilot, please?
Israel responded to Iran's attack within hours, the Israeli military hitting a petrochemical plant in Iran. The IDF says 7 sites were struck by the Israeli Air Force, describing them as Iranian strategic defense systems. Iran, too, not reporting casualties. The trigger for all this, Iran says, was Israel's bombing on Sunday in Beirut, targeting the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah. Iran says it's a violation of a deal worked out with President Trump last week. After Iran's attack, Trump told Axios he would ask Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to retaliate. And he told the Financial Times that Netanyahu will have to accept any deal the U.S. negotiates with Iran. Quote, he won't have any choice. I call all the shots. He doesn't call the shots. Noticeably absent, the U.S. Iran did not fire a single shot at American warships in the Persian Gulf, American bases, or any Gulf allies, while CENTCOM released a new video showing American forces in the region ready for action.
An Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman this morning said that the United States ultimately bears responsibility for this escalation, for allowing Israel to violate the ceasefire. But he said that the U.S. and Iran are still exchanging messages in, quote, an atmosphere of deep mistrust.
All right, Richard, thank you so much. Well, here at home, let's get to a big story. Ballots are still being counted in several key California primary races, including the race for governor and mayor of Los Angeles. Well, in that mayor's race, reality TV star Spencer Pratt has now been overtaken by progressive challenger Nithya Raman. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz joins us from Los Angeles. She's been following these races closely. Liz, good morning. All right, first, just walk us through where that mayor's race stands this morning.
Yeah, hey, Savannah, good morning to you. Conservative reality TV star Spencer Pratt has dropped to third place behind current Democratic Mayor Karen Bass, who we know is heading to the runoff, and progressive city councilwoman Nithya Raman. Over the last several days, Raman had been gaining ground on Pratt, and she does now lead him by a little over 3,000 votes. Again, those ballots are still being counted. Pratt does appear, though, to be taking issue with her late surge, echoing President Trump's baseless claims of fraud. He posted on X over the weekend, they're not the only ones who know where to find votes. And this comes as the Justice Department has launched multiple election fraud investigations here, Savannah.
Also, Liz, give us the latest about the governor's race to succeed Democrat Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, so NBC is projecting that Javier Becerra, the former Biden cabinet member, the Democrat, will advance to the November runoff. But it remains to be seen if he is going to face conservative commentator Steve Hilton or fellow Democrat and billionaire climate activist Tom Steyer. Hilton is about 300,000 votes ahead of Steyer right now. And if the current vote trends continue, it does seem likely that he will advance to the runoff.
Liz, so let's talk about the why, the how this all works, because a lot of people are wondering why it is taking so long to count the ballots. And then what we're seeing here, when you see Democrats sort of seem to be doing better as the days go on, why is that the case? Explain to us.
Yeah, Savannah. So much of this has to do with California's vote by mail system. This is how the majority of voters here in the state cast their ballot. California allows ballots to be counted as long as they are postmarked by or on Election Day, and then they have to arrive within 7 days afterwards. Mail-in ballots then also have to go through this lengthy verification process. That takes a while. And then the sheer volume here also adds to that. LA County alone, for instance, has more registered voters than most individual states do. Savannah, as to the point you brought up about why we are seeing now this late swing towards Democrats, like in the mayor race, Democrats tend to vote by mail more than Republicans. And also in this race in particular, many Democrats, because of the amount of candidates in the governor's race, strategically waited until the final few days to vote to see who polls were showing had emerged as the frontrunners. All of that sort of helping Democrats get a lot of these late arriving ballots. Savannah.
Liz Kreutz, thank you so much for walking us through that. Well, now to the continuing fallout at CBS News. Scott Pelley is speaking out for the first time since being fired from 60 Minutes, accusing network leadership of political bias and raising new questions about the future of the long-running news magazine. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin joins us with the latest here and what Pelley's former colleagues are now saying about the future of the program. Aaron, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. In the hour-long interview with the New York Times, Scott Pelley says he's heartbroken while also calling on CBS's parent company Paramount to step in to save one of the most successful broadcasts in American history. This morning, veteran 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley is calling out CBS leadership as incompetent and inexperienced.
Right now, CBS News, in my view, is on fire.
Part of an emotional interview with the New York Times, his first since being fired from the story broadcast.
There are people in that room who go to war zones when they are pregnant. To have people running CBS News who don't know that, have never felt that, and don't understand it is a tragedy I never expected to see.
Pelley was let go after accusing Barry Weiss, the network's editor-in-chief, of murdering 60 Minutes during a closed-door staff meeting last week, railing against the decision to dismiss correspondents Sharon Alfonsi and Cecilia Vega, as well as the show's senior producers. In the hour-long sit-down, Pelley alleged editorial interference at a time when CBS's parent company, led by David Ellison, is trying to push through a $110 billion mega merger, which requires regulatory approval from the Trump administration.
As good move forward and to the right.
Pelley pointed to his February coverage of the killing of ICE protester Renee Good, alleging Barry Weiss directed his team to make the protesters look more violent and to describe Good as driving toward the officer who shot her.
There was a thumb on the scale for the president's version of events that I felt was a level of political influence that I had never seen in 37 years at CBS News.
In the end, Pelley says he refused to make Weiss's changes. In a statement to NBC News, CBS says the email from Weiss had no motivation and were proposed solely to make the piece as strong, fair, and accurate as possible. Pelley was also visibly shaken when asked about these scathing comments the president made about him.
Scott Pelley's a stiff, and he's afraid. And he's part of this, gang of crooked, stupid people that don't care about our country.
You become a journalist because you love the country. There is no democracy without journalism.
Since Pelley was fired, lots of questions about the future of the three remaining correspondents, Leslie Stahl, Bill Whitaker, and John Wertheim. They've issued a joint statement saying they're staying put, adding they do not want to see 60 Minutes die and that they want to stay and fight, while also pointedly noting newsrooms are supposed to be not supposed to be run like dictatorships.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much. We're going to keep on this for more on what this could mean for the future of CBS News in 60 Minutes. We're going to bring in Brian Steinberg, senior TV editor at Variety. Brian, as always, we appreciate you joining us this morning. So let's start with this announcement from Pelley's longtime colleagues, the one that Aaron just mentioned, saying that they're staying put there at 60 Minutes. What do you think that message sends about the future of the show?
The show will continue, but there's a but on it. I think Leslie and Bill and everybody else, let's see what happens. Let's see how this all works out. This is a very new system. We're not happy with how our colleagues were pushed out, but we want the show to continue, so let's try it out. I think they're putting a toe in the water with the threat that, if this isn't the way we like it, we will take off.
So the FCC chairman is weighing in, calling Pelley. The quote here from them is that he's completely out of touch. What do you think it says about the story? It's drawing attention even at that level.
This is a venerable, treasured show that most Americans at least have heard of. 60 Minutes has been on the air for almost 60 years. It is a cultural institution like Saturday Night Live or those kind of programs. So when you hear people are being ousted and pushed out and the show's no longer working, even the average person's like, what are you talking about? I'd like to learn some more about this.
Brian, what are the big questions now, both editorially, but also from a business standpoint, as this controversy continues to play out?
You know, I think we need to see what's going to happen. The sheer fact of the matter is the show has fewer people to produce the stories that make everyone watch it. I mean, this is a economics question now. It remains unclear to me whether the people who run CBS News and Paramount understand the business of CBS News. This program generates audience off football games every fall. So if there's nothing to show, when the football comes on, you're going to, you're losing the ability to monetize the massive sums you pay out for football every year. So I'd like to see what happens. Will they be able to get enough stuff in the can with fewer people at the helm? Plus, there's talk of making more 60 Minutes for web audiences and social audiences. Who's going to do it? Let's see what happens. They seem to have a detente for now, but they clearly are going to have to bring in more people to help out.
Brian, if we just rewind for a second here on how we got to this place where we're still talking about this a week later, it was a week ago that this new leadership came in for a meeting with staff where Scott Pelley made these comments saying they were murdering CBS. There was this combative interaction between him and this new executive producer who has been brought in, this tech reporter, Nick Bilton. And now here we are, like I mentioned, still talking about it, still seeing these headlines come out of it, getting even more behind the scenes information and accusations from a journalist like Scott Pelley about what's going on there. What do you think this does mean? The fact that this has turned into essentially a scandal for the network to Paramount leadership, who put Barry Weiss in place. Are they upset at this point? Are they blindsided? Are they thinking it's going to blow over? What do you think is going on?
I can't see how they're blindsided. It was an unorthodox choice from the get-go. While she's very intelligent and is very provocative, I don't know that her managerial skills in a large mainstream media organization were proven. She's clearly not taking the advice of counsel, people who are at CBS News, which is what I've been told. And my understanding is she has yet to really establish direct, sustained relationships with top producers and key talent. These people deliver what you need to make your organization a success. And until there's less of a schism between Barry's executive team and the rest of CBS News, this stuff's going to continue.
All right, Brian Steinberg, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
This morning, we are keeping an eye on severe weather across the country. Let's get you details with our forecast with meteorologist Andrea Romero. Hey, Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. And yeah, this morning, we're tracking some severe weather here in parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, moving into Missouri. We have some severe thunderstorm warnings, some flash flood warnings up with this round of thunderstorms that seem to be impacting that area at this time. In fact, we have over 27 million people that will be impacted or under this flood watch that extends all the way from the southern plains into the Mississippi and Tennessee river valleys. And that's going to be going through today, possibly into tomorrow. We're expecting perhaps 2 to 3 inches per hour rainfall in those areas that could see that flash flooding. And along with the flash flood risk, we also have a severe weather threat for basically that same area here in the central plains. Wind gusts of over 70 miles per hour are possible, damaging hail. We also have the possibility of a few tornadoes. And this is the beginning of that severe weather threat that will continue throughout much of this week. And it'll only continue to get worse as the storms continue to move on eastward. Severe storms are possible across the Front Range today and tomorrow. The severe weather setup will be impacting especially parts here of the northern plains into the Dakotas, also into the Appalachians. We can see here the storm hazards. A few tornadoes are possible here in this area where the enhanced risk is setting up, and that's parts of the Dakotas from here into Jamestown. And we are expecting that severe weather threat to continue to move eastward and possibly even reach the Ohio Valley by Thursday, where 41 million people will be under that severe weather threat. And then the other story we're also tracking is the heat. We're dealing with heat advisories today way over the south and central plains. The temperatures in the 90s feel in the triple digits with the humidity, and that heat will be moving on north, moving out east. By the end of the week, late Friday, we're talking about temperatures that are going to be in the 90s from New York, Washington, D.C., even into the triple digits into parts of the Carolinas. So the heat is also going to be that humid heat, not that dry heat that we had this past weekend. And of course, out west, we do have that fire threat, especially for parts of Nevada, Wyoming. 11 million people are under these fire weather watches and red flag warnings that are setting up due to those dry, gusty conditions. Of course, that drought conditions that makes it so much worse. And that's how it's looking for the week ahead as the rain moves over into the eastern part of the country. The summer steam continues in the central part, and we do have some mild temperatures up in the Pacific Northwest.
All right, that fire danger is something to be well aware of and prepared for. Andrea, thank you so much. There's much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including a different kind of training that's now underway across America ahead of the start of the FIFA World Cup later this week. We will explain. First, after the break, though, devastation in the Philippines. A powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake rocking its southern coast, killing at least 19 people overnight. The latest up next. We're back with some breaking news overseas. The Philippines was rocked by a powerful magnitude 7.8 earthquake overnight. Crews are desperately combing through the debris looking for survivors and saying the death toll is quickly rising. For more, let's bring in NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer, who joins us with the latest. Janice, good morning.
Savannah, good morning. Even in a place accustomed to earthquakes, this one was intense. At least 19 people dead, dozens injured, and a fuller picture of the destruction is only now emerging.
This morning, growing fears of devastation from a disaster after a powerful earthquake shook the Philippines, measuring magnitude 7.8 and centered offshore, some 20 miles deep. Elementary students returning to school after their summer break huddled together as strong shaking brought down the roof, while triggering 3-foot tsunami waves along the coast. Among the areas hardest hit, the southern port city of General Santos, where several buildings collapsed. This is what it looked like inside one of them, in the rush to get people out. The airport sustaining damage and closed temporarily. The quake hitting just after 7:30 a.m. local time, with a series of aftershocks that followed. For hours, a tsunami warning was in effect across the Pacific, the president declaring an emergency. The region in the so-called Ring of Fire experiences hundreds of earthquakes every year. The challenge now, with widespread damage and thousands displaced, getting help to those who need it.
With evacuation and relief efforts now underway, the Philippines military is being deployed to help rescue teams. People are also being warned to stay out of damaged homes and buildings because strong aftershocks mean there's a real risk even more could collapse. Savannah?
All right, Janice, thank you so much. We have more international news now. Chinese leader Xi Jinping has arrived in North Korea for a rare summit with Kim Jong-un. NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now to take us around the world in 60 seconds. Hi, Molly. Good morning.
Savannah, good morning to you. That's right. The Chinese leader touched down in Pyongyang, and there was a lavish state welcome waiting for him. He arrived with his wife, visiting Pyongyang's main square, a military honor guard, thousands of people, including lots of little children carrying balloons, jumping up and down. They staged a major welcome ceremony. Now, the rare two-day visit will focus on reasserting China's influence over the country and providing economic assistance in return. Moving to Spain, and Savannah, I'm actually headed to Barcelona this week to cover Pope Leo's trip tomorrow. He drew over 1 million people in Madrid for Mass yesterday. Later this week, he will be holding a very special Mass in the famed Sagrada Familia. He is in the European Christian heartland for a week. And finally, one of the world's best tennis players without a Grand Slam title until now. It was Alexander Zverev's fourth major final, his first on top, winning the French Open over this weekend. Missing this year, a few of the top players, including Carlos Alcaraz, who withdrew before the tournament, and Jannik Sinner, who crashed out in round two. Zverev lost in the Roland Garros finals in 2024 to Alcaraz. So sweet, sweet revenge this year for the German player. It was a very good match as well. Savannah?
Oh my gosh, just so crazy the way the whole tournament went with so many of the favorites out there so early. So some unpredicted wins. Molly, thank you. Well, coming up, if you can believe it, the FIFA World Cup kicks off in just a few days. After the break, we're giving you a behind-the-scenes look at how the FBI is training to keep spectators safe across America. More on that next. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with new comments criticizing Europe's immigration policies from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Let's bring in NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz for more on that and other headlines. Hey, Megan, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. Yeah, let's start overseas in France, where Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth delivered a speech commemorating the anniversary of D-Day. That's when Allied forces stormed the shores of Normandy, France, in a push that ultimately helps lead to the end of World War II in Europe. This time, though, Hegseth used the speech to criticize what he called a, quote, invasion, referring to immigration. Hegseth said that now European beaches are, quote, stormed by different dangerous ideologies, and he asked when European capitals would do something about it. It's the second time in 1 week that a top administration official has publicly criticized Europe over immigration. Let's stick with the Pentagon, which recently raised the counterintelligence threat level from Israel to the highest level. That's according to 2 U.S. officials and 1 former U.S. official. It comes as the Defense Department is getting more concerned about Israel trying to monitor top U.S. officials to learn more about how the Trump administration is viewing the war in the Middle East. The White House denied this, and a spokesperson for Israel's embassy in the U.S. said that Israel does not spy on America. Finally, let's turn to the World Cup, which kicks off in just a couple of days. Now the U.S. is pushing for Europe to adopt similar travel restrictions as the U.S. in light of the Ebola outbreak. That's according to a State Department cable seen by NBC News. The cable said that if European countries do not use precautions like the administration's, it could result in consequences, though it's not clear what those might be. Remember, the U.S. has paused entry of foreigners to the U.S. if they have been to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, South Sudan, or Uganda within 3 weeks of coming to the U.S. And that's a look at what's making news in politics this morning. Savannah?
All right, Megan, thank you so much. Well, let's stay on the 2026 World Cup, which Megan just mentioned there, and it officially kicks off this Thursday. Now, the teams have been warming up with friendly tournaments over the weekend, but it's not just the players on the field that are training. The FBI is also getting ready to protect the stadiums against drone attacks. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell went behind the scenes with the agency's security teams.
Before the seats are filled and fans pack every stadium hosting the world's best, FBI-trained operators are on the move with an electronic arsenal of cameras, radars, and listening devices ready to defend the sky against an evolving and agile aircraft, drones.
The thing that keeps us all up at night is an unauthorized drone with a payload that can hurt people.
Unmanned aircraft systems, or drones, can be used to violate restricted airspace and jeopardize safety at major events, posing a risk to the 78 games across 11 cities that make up the FIFA World Cup.
We hear it described as 78 Super Bowls over a period of just over a month. Is the FBI ready? Is the U.S. government ready?
We are ready. We have sunk a lot of resources into events like this.
From rapidly advancing drone technology to specialized detection to neutralize the threats, operators are trained to spot drones within mere seconds.
We have a drone right now hovering about 100 feet.
In this simulation, demonstrating a drone homing in on a soccer stadium.
Our immediate goal is to eliminate this threat and get it out of this area.
Are you able to take control of someone's drone from afar?
We have a variety of technical methods available to us. Taking over is one option.
This is the FBI. You have violated a no-fly zone. Land your drone immediately.
Using radio frequency tactics, authorities can redirect a drone and even force it from the sky.
So sometimes the threat is someone who's simply out of bounds.
Absolutely. There's a lot of, unfortunately, careless, clueless and even reckless drone pilots out there that really should know better.
This is an FBI tactical command center, the kind deployed outside big events. Inside, operators are monitoring the airspace, checking on screens, communicating with other law enforcement on the ground. Law enforcement works to locate a drone pilot to determine intent, a hobbyist gone wrong or a potential attacker. Drones have become so common, their unlawful presence is actually expected at the World Cup and major events.
Do you believe it is highly likely there'll be some kind of security event?
Yes, I think there will be some kind of security event. I think what you have to understand is security events range from anyone from a fan who may have had too much to drink, starting an altercation, all the way up to a major terrorist attack.
Kevin Hammerschlag, New York City Police Department.
At its Huntsville, Alabama training center, the FBI has certified more than 60 operators from law enforcement agencies across the country, from the NYPD to the LAPD, Louisiana and Maryland State Police. They'll be ready to deploy in all the FIFA host cities, devoting precious resources discerning between real danger and tough talk online.
We are constantly triaging threats that come in. There's a lot of keyboard courage out there.
Please exit the area immediately.
The FBI's mission to stop unlawful drones at major events is designed to be largely unseen, so spectators can follow the action on the field and not in the sky. Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News, Huntsville, Alabama.
Just a fascinating look there. Thanks to Kelly for that. Well, coming up, concerns this morning over Olympian Simone Biles' health. When we come back, we'll show you her cryptic social media post from over the weekend saying she almost died. That is next. Stay with us. We are back with a health scare for Olympian great Simone Biles. The gymnastics star shared on her social media that she almost died last week, but offered few other details. Biles says she is now home and recovering. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Goss joins us with more. Steph, good morning.
Biles called this medical incident one of the scariest experiences of her life. She says she'll explain more about what happened at some point, and it's not clear yet if this could impact whether or not she competes in the 2028 LA Olympics.
This morning, gymnastics icon Simone Biles is recovering from a health scare. The 7-time Olympic gold medal winner posting on Instagram over the weekend, "Almost dying wasn't on my bingo card," sharing an image that appears to be 3 hospital wristbands. Biles adding, "This was one of, if not the scariest experiences of my life." She did not go into details, but said it happened while her husband, NFL star Jonathan Owens, was away practicing with the Indianapolis Colts. Biles later posting a picture from her bed where she's been resting with her dogs, attaching an image of her heart rate. Just days prior, according to her social media, Biles was doing backflips with fellow gymnast Zoe Miller. It all comes at a time of uncertainty over her Olympic future. She opened up about the decision in February on Today.
What comes after all this?
We got a little bit more of things to do, and then we'll see.
Oh, we'll see.
No breaking news. I'm so sorry, guys.
Biles has come back from adversity before, after withdrawing from the Tokyo Olympics in 2021 due to a mental block known as the twisties. Biles prioritized her mental health and made the decision to compete again, sharing her journey in a Netflix documentary.
This time coming back, it's truly for myself. I never want to look back in 10 years and say, oh, what if I could have done another Olympic cycle, or at least tried.
Her comeback at the Paris Olympics ending with 3 gold medals and a silver. Fans now hoping she'll bounce back yet again.
We're just over 2 years out from the start of the 2028 Olympics, so it's certainly possible Biles will still decide to compete again. Of course, it all depends on what happened and her recovery. We've reached out to her and her team for more information, but have not heard back.
All right, Steph, thank you very much. So scary. All right, well, scientists have made a startling breakthrough in human gene editing. A new study from researchers at Columbia University revealed that scientists were able to edit the DNA of early human embryos with unprecedented accuracy. And the discovery could open the door for engineering babies with selected characteristics, a prospect that has long generated controversy in the scientific community and beyond. For more on this, let's bring in Carl Zimmer, who covered this story for the New York Times. He writes their Origins column. He's also the author of the book Airborne, The Hidden History of the Life We Breathe. Carl, good morning. Thanks you so much for being with us. Just walk us through what these scientists accomplished.
Sure. So what they did was that they took fertilized human eggs that had been donated for research, and they used a pretty new technology for editing DNA. And they were able to precisely edit a single genetic letter in the DNA of this embryo. And this, could potentially be a way to change a mutation that causes a genetic disorder. And they were able to do it with really high accuracy in a way that had not been done before.
Carl, as I mentioned, this draws a lot of controversy, the prospect of gene editing embryos and how this could ultimately be used on humans, what it means as people are building families. So first, just walk us through, what researchers are arguing are the pros and cons of this technology.
Sure. Well, we have to recognize this is actually a reality because several years ago in China, a scientist actually used an earlier technique to edit the genes of 3 embryos, and those are now 3 children. We don't know what their health is like. We have no idea. But, we're already into this new age, whether we like it or not. So, the pro side possibly of this is that you could undo mutations that could lead to devastating diseases later in life in a way that would be quick and easy and pretty inexpensive compared to millions of dollars of treatment later. The con is, well, maybe it's very dangerous, and maybe there's a slippery slope here where people start to say, like, well, actually, I just want my baby to be, quote unquote, better, whatever that means, and I want you to change their DNA.
And when you say something like that, what are the types of little better things that we'd really have to kind of morally grapple with if we're going to be able to make changes like that?
Well, there are certainly companies that now will claim that they will take a look at IVF embryos and look at their DNA and tell you which embryo is most likely to be to produce a tall child, or maybe something influencing intelligence. So these are claims that are being made now in the marketplace, but scientists are warning that a lot of these claims do not hold up.
All right. Carl Zimmer, this is a conversation we will continue having as this science develops. You're certainly a talker. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's stay on the medical front. According to a recent survey, 1 in 3 adults have turned to AI for health information in just the past year. How safe is that, though? Well, NBC News chief consumer investigative correspondent, News Now anchor, our friend Vicki Nguyen takes a look for us.
Hey there, between rising healthcare costs and increased wait times to schedule doctor's appointments, it's not surprising that more people are looking for free, fast medical guidance. But how does AI compare to the knowledge and experience of a real-life MD? We asked 2 patients to try out both.
Start telling chat all of your symptoms.
It's the new way to get medical advice quickly and for free.
Use Claude to fix your sleep problems.
AI tools providing advice on everything from symptoms to possible treatments. OpenAI says more than 230 million users globally ask ChatGPT questions every week about health and wellness. But how accurate are these tools when it comes to helping everyday users with their medical problems? We got help from 2 patients who agreed to take their nagging health issues to ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. Then, for a second opinion, with primary care physician and Northwell Health Program Director Dr. Lauren Block and her residents. First up, Jackie Kaplan from Long Island, looking for help with her headaches.
Tell me what brings you in today.
So it started about a couple years ago. I would just feel like a sharp little pain on the left side of my head, kind of around here.
The online tools and doctors gave some overlapping advice. ChatGPT and Gemini both suggesting timing is key when treating a headache with medication, as did Dr. Block.
The sooner you take medicine, that will help. Absolutely.
But ChatGPT gave Jackie a list of 9 possible types of headaches she could be dealing with.
Any medical problems in your family?
Dr. Block also asked specifically about Jackie's family history, triggers, and work conditions. Information the AI didn't ask for based on Jackie's prompts. leading the doctors to this diagnosis.
This does sound like migraine headaches rather than anything more dangerous.
How did the information that you got on AI compare to what you got from the real doctor and the residents?
The doctors and everything, I just felt like if I was confused about a question, they were able to understand it. With chat, it kind of just oh, here's one option, here's another option, here's this one and that one. You can really just try so much.
Is it overwhelming?
Way too many directions, way too many.
Next up, David Stahl from New Jersey. He was diagnosed with gout last year and wants advice to avoid flare-ups.
So tell us a little bit about when this started.
Last year, I had a really crazy weekend, and I partied a lot with my friends. The following Monday, I woke up and my toe was in immense pain.
Like Jackie, David got some similar advice online and face-to-face about limiting alcohol and meat in his diet. But his AI searches also prompted him to ask the doctors questions he hadn't considered before.
When I used AI, it told me that sugary soda drinks are actually probably worse than beer.
Alcohol and processed foods, including sugar-sweetened beverages, absolutely have been associated with gout.
AI also offered something the doctors didn't: healthy drink recipes and excuses.
The AI tool also helped with suggestions to tell people why you couldn't drink, which was, I thought, pretty cool.
So the AI gave you social recommendations as well?
Yeah.
But Dr. Block says, like any technology, patients need to understand AI's limits.
Using a chatbot solely without ever seeing a doctor can be dangerous. They can't do a physical exam. They don't know all about your history, the other conditions you have, the other medications that you're taking, and they can't help advise you if you're having a complication.
You're saying don't rely on them completely.
Like anything you read on the internet, take all of it with a grain of salt. There is a lot of great information. There's also some misinformation.
A spokesperson for Google telling us in part, for sensitive topics like medical matters, Gemini recommends users consult with qualified professionals. And OpenAI saying ChatGPT is not a substitute for professional medical advice, adding it can be a resource to help people make sense of medical information and feel more prepared for conversations with professionals. Our patients agreeing while the AI suggestions were helpful, they're not ready to ditch real doctors anytime soon.
You feel cared about, you feel like they're really listening to you.
There was more of human touch.
This year, OpenAI, Anthropic, Amazon, and Microsoft's Copilot have all announced new AI health products that claim to deliver more personalized results. And the Mayo Clinic also recently revealed it's developed an AI model that can help specialists detect pancreatic cancer up to 3 years before clinical diagnosis. Back to you.
All right, Vicki, thank you so much. Really interesting there. Coming up, it's a hot new trend in dining that's given the phrase fueling up a fresh spin. After the break, why hungry customers are flocking to, get this, gas stations while looking for a decent meal on the go. That's next on Morning News Now. We're ending this hour with a look at an unlikely shift in consumer appetites. Gas station dining is on the rise. These days, some experts say convenience stores across the country are starting to look more like gourmet food destinations on the road. NBC News correspondent Ryan Chandler is in Dallas, Texas with more on what is on the menu. Ryan, good morning.
Well, hey there, from Fuel City, right on the edge of downtown Dallas. The Monday morning rush is on, but it is not the gas pumps that has people flocking here every day of the week. The real destination is right here. Every Dallasite knows these are some of the best breakfast tacos in the city. And it's just one example of how gas stations nowadays are about so much more than fuel.
I'm so hungry I can eat a sandwich from a gas station.
What used to be food just for convenience is now at a culinary crossroads.
I'm always finding good Indian food in gas stations.
From kimchi fried rice.
Man, this is just bursting with flavor.
To mahi-mahi tacos. Food from the gas station is feeling more gourmet. As the Wall Street Journal puts it, your next great meal may be at a gas station. Many pump-side convenience stores are expanding their menu as consumer habits are changing, and inflation-wary Americans are hungry for more affordable choices.
Y'all are going to think I'm crazy, but I swear this gas station tastes better than half the restaurants I've ever been to.
According to a 2025 poll from InTouch Insight, 72% of Americans see convenience stores as a viable alternative to fast food chains and other quick-service restaurants. A 56% jump from the year before.
Hiring people who have
restaurant industry experience to work there. They're offering value deals and they're preparing food on site. They're doing all the things that you would expect a fast food restaurant to do.
From local gems like Mendez Fuel in Miami that makes fresh, made-to-order sandwiches and acai bowls, to major chains across the country, stores are all upping their food game, hoping customers come in to fuel up.
I cannot believe that this is gas station food.
Think Japanese-style egg sandwiches from 7-Eleven, freshly chopped brisket sandwiches from Buc-ee's, and cheesy breakfast pizza from Casey's, complete with freshly made dough. Even stars like Noah Khan getting in on the hype.
And you find yourself a kind of a gas station connoisseur?
I feel like I'm like the Michelin guide for gas stations.
Industry experts say chains continue to broaden business beyond fuel, drinks, and long-declining tobacco sales.
Look at this thing. This was $13.91.
Easy ordering and a range of options for every diet. Drivers are filling up on a whole lot more than just gas.
When they up their food games the way they've been doing, it only increases that loyalty that customers have for them.
Now, convenience store chains tell us breakfast is really the time they want to capitalize on to catch that morning commute crowd. So they're adding specialty menu items to compete with fast food chains. Even some craft coffee shops are opening inside gas stations. As far as this place goes, you can't find a better deal than this. $3 cash-only tacos. We're going to get some and let you know how it is. In Dallas, I'm Ryan Chandler. Back to you.
All right, Ryan, thanks. I already know those are going to be good. And now I'm going to be in search of a breakfast taco here in New York. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.